century has passed since we first began our journey across the sea to find the glory in the dream. Just a Taylor and a Joiner and a brother built our team. Greeted sometimes with hostility, but more often with the light. The boys arise and had to clear through troubled skies. After constant days of struggle, they arrived in paradise. This feels like heaven. This must be the dream. This feels like paradise. The best we've ever seen. The best we've ever seen. Even through the lean years, our support would flock in thousands. Countless trophies stand displayed for all to view. By side, brothers, sisters, we're united, and our children do the same. This feels like heaven. This must be a dream. This feels like paradise. The best we've ever seen. The best we've ever seen. The above club was formed in November 1887 by a number of Catholics in the East End of the city. The main objective of the club is to supply the East End conferences of the St Vincent de Paul Society to support those in the missions of St Mary's, Sacred Heart and St Michael's. Many cases of sheer poverty are left unaided through lack of means. A football club will be formed for the maintenance of the dinner tables of our needy children. This feels like heaven. This must be the dream.
And we're back. It's a Celtic state of mind. Yes, Sean, thank you for pointing out the fact that when I played that at half-time, we went away and conceded a goal. Thankfully, that didn't happen when we played it at the end of the second half. Sean, that was something, wasn't it, that second half? I mean, where did it all go wrong?
Well, I think it started going wrong when Greg Taylor went off injured. And then Juranovic got absolutely smoked for both goals, and again on a couple of occasions. They obviously had that game plan in mind and they came out and executed it. And when they got their two early goals, their other game plan of to just kill the game at that point came into force, and we could not get much going at that point. It was very much gamesmanship from that point. Yeah, we struggled to create anything. I think if it had been because they went ahead early, that really killed it for us. If it had been even one each beyond the hour, we'd have seen a better game. But their goal from the 54th minute on, or whatever it was, 52nd, was just kill the game, and it was pretty dire. I'm not sure if their fans would have enjoyed it or not, but probably were.
Well, there's loads to discuss here because obviously we spoke about the first half during the halftime bulletin, Sean, but it is relevant to the discussion we're going to have here about that second half because it was completely different in terms of the performance. Celtic, I felt in the first half, other than that 5-10 minute spell we spoke about, were pretty controlled, they were composed. And in the second half, we've seen, that first 10 minutes and the game is completely turned around. But what I want to do is I want to start off with a positive here because I had loads of negatives written down until we scored the equalising goal. But when you look at the makeup of that goal in the 88th minute, Kyogo scores it. Jota and Moy are involved in the lead up to the goal. And I think that the changes that were made, both after an hour and after 75 minutes, are absolutely pivotal. The first ones that we make after an hour, Sean, I had shared with you that I thought the second lot of changes would have been the ones we made at 60 minutes. I thought Jota and Giakoumakis were going to come on. But the interesting thing about the second lot of changes is that Hatate came off for Giakoumakis, and that proved to be absolutely pivotal because Kyogo stays on. He's had one of the most quiet games we've seen from him, but he scores the equaliser. So we've got to give credit to Ange. Got to give credit to the big man.
For that, for sure. As bad the decision as it was to bring Juranovic on, it was an amazing decision to leave Kyogo on. The players that we're bringing on were all no-brainers, like everyone could pick it. But you're right, to take Hatate off, who would arguably been the best player on the pitch to that point, and leave Kyogo on, it's turned out it was pivotal. And there was nothing really classic about the goal. It was just a scrappy goal, just a bit of fight from Moy and Jota, and Kyogo was just in the right place in the right time. And just when Kyogo doesn't have time to think about it, sometimes he can do it, sometimes he can't, and it just fell nicely for him, and he just rattled it in the goal. It was, I had to try. I struggled and failed to mute my celebrations, but luckily my 3-year-old stayed asleep.
Brilliant. I mean, how difficult is it? This is the thing. But you mentioned there about how the home fans would have been enjoying it. Now, I want to bring this up before we get into the action. What went wrong? What went right? We've come through unscathed. I mean, listen, we've come through unscathed. When that second goal goes in, there's that instant reaction, but there's also a wee sense of relief because we did not play to our abilities in that second half. I thought we were very, very poor, and there's reasons for that. But with regards to the atmosphere in the game, it might have just been the source from which I was watching it on the live feed, Sky Sports, Celtic TV. I just did not feel there was any atmosphere at the game. Is it been muted rather? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Did it seem like a bit of a damp, flat atmosphere today?
To be fair, on Celtic TV, the sound quality was absolutely awful, as you would expect from the normal production value of Celtic TV. So, yeah, it was hard. It's hard to tell. I didn't hear too much too much sectarianism or singing in general, which is unusual. But you could kind of see them, certainly the onion bears dancing about. So I don't really know. Yeah, I'm not really sure. And I think probably that comes from what I mentioned earlier, was that Sevco had the game plan where they just played for 6 minutes and then shut up shop, and that kind of, I guess that backfired on them because they were not in any way interested in going for a third goal. And if they had, it might have been, that might have put a nail in our coffin because we were not creating much. But there you go.
That's what I've got here, lack of creativity, which is astonishing when you look at the individuals we have in that Celtic side, Sean, that we're not able to fashion any more chances than we did. I was critical for that 5-game spell prior to the St Johnstone win, where we were kind of scraping through, with the 2-1s. And I mean, even when we beat Dundee United 4-2, the 2 goals came in the final minute of the game. Because for those 5 games, we were averaging a goal every 11 chances. And you look at today's game, there was only 8 shots by Celtic on goal, 2 on target, 2 goals. So, yeah, the ones we got on target, we did okay with the conversion, but we didn't create enough, and that was frustrating. Over the piece, we had 60% of the possession. So, it's easy to look at that from a perspective of being really disappointed in that second half, but we still had plenty of the ball. I'm really keen to bring in the comments from the commenters. I won't go in too early because obviously the live feed and the comments had started before we got the equaliser. So let's have a look here. Lane R, brilliant by Moy for the goal. Okay, so we'll have a wee chat about Moy because that's one of the biggest discussion points at the beginning of the game, Sean. Was the fact that, after probably his best performance in a Celtic jersey against Hibs, Ange makes a decision to keep with the McGregor and O'Reilly and shift Hatate right back into the midfield. I don't think there was many complaints from us at the beginning of the game, so we're not going to revise what we were saying. But he did come on and he did make an impact. And I think after about an hour, I was a bit concerned about the way that O'Reilly's second half was going, Sean. Is it a concern? Yep. I mean, I don't know. Did he run out of steam?
I think he did, yeah. And actually, I kind of noticed that a little bit towards the end of the first half. But yeah, O'Reilly, I think, did run out of steam, as you say. And Moy, when he came on, did offer us more going forward in a creative and in terms of his industry going forward. And I don't want to say O'Reilly had a bad game. I don't think he did. I thought he was brilliant for the first 35 minutes. But you're right, he did seem to lag. And to be fair, at the start of the second half, the whole team looked sluggish. And I mean the whole team. I know Juranovic and Starfelt were most at fault for the goals that we conceded, but I actually thought everyone looked sluggish to start that second half. Maybe it's something that I noted was, which I at the time, I thought that's very unusual, and then it kind of played out. Was that Sevco came out and started doing a warm up at the start of the second half, which I never see teams do, and I was quite confused. Like, they had the cones out and they were doing shuttle runs and stuff like on the pitch before they kicked off, and I was like, well, I hope that doesn't mean that they're going to start on the front foot and we'll start on the back foot, and that was how it played out, which was something interesting. They knew they had to go for it, and they certainly did, and they really caught us sleeping.
I noticed that as well. I noticed that because Morelos ran on the park and avoided the shuttle runs. I noticed that. Phil, wonderful equaliser. Aren't they all, Phil? When I don't know if, Sean, you were watching my reaction, because we're in a kind of waiting room before we go live, but I was going absolutely tonto when we scored that goal. I don't think it was a get out of jail card. I really don't. I just think that, we weren't as dynamic as we are used to. The pace wasn't there. This tempo that we're used to, the passages of play, cutting open defences, turning defence into attack. I didn't see any of that. And I didn't want to pinpoint O'Reilly as being the main culprit, because I agree with you. I think it was right across the park. I mean, the midfield's battle that often wins and loses these games, I don't think we lost it. I just think it was all very pedestrian, and that was frustrating. And I think there's a point here where I'm watching the game, I'm thinking, who's going to grab this by the scruff of the neck? Because we've seen McGregor doing it in loads of games. Who's going to do it? And I guess at that point you're thinking, well, if no one's doing it, let's make the substitutions. And they were effective when you look at it at the end. I'm really keen to bring in your comments and your thoughts. How are you feeling after that 2-2? What went wrong? Was it the selection that started the game coming back to haunt us? Is it, like Sean says, the span on the works, which was the injury to Taylor, and the fact that we didn't get the performance out of Juranovic that we're used to? Lane R, how is Hart not coming for these crosses? He's been a good servant, but I'm honestly tired of him. What's your take on Hart? I mean, I don't have massive concerns about Joe Hart at this stage of the game. I think at half time I was critical of the mistake he made, but he made up for it. I don't think today's poor performance was on him. But I did notice that Seagrass wasn't on the bench. I'm not sure if there's been an injury at training. But at this moment in time, I still think, unless there's a real loss of form between now and the end of the season, Joe Hart's the number one for the rest of this campaign, Sean.
Yeah, still Joe Hart for me. I think Seagrass has been brilliant when he has come in, and I hope he does keep his place in the cup games. But yeah, I'm still comfortable with Joe Hart. He makes one big mistake today, but then he makes one world-class save to recover himself from that. I think one thing that we might want to mention just before we scored our equaliser is Cameron Carter-Vickers absolutely saves a goal-bound shot from Malik Tillman. I do not think Hart was saving that. I think that was going in, and Carter-Vickers comes out of absolutely nowhere with like some sort of 8-foot-long leg to block that shot. And like 2 minutes later, we scored the equaliser. I think that was a game-changing tackle from Carter-Vickers. And I think I've seen some comments earlier shouting him for man of the match. And look, if you give strikers credit for scoring goals, then you have to give Carter-Vickers the credit for saving that goal. That was an absolutely sensational tackle, and he was an absolute rock throughout the game.
That's the kind of thing in games, though, Sean, that often goes under the radar, isn't it? These little moments throughout the season that you could actually list them. They're not a penalty save. They're not a last-minute winner. But it's just these little moments that, over a season, there's a few of them. I think earlier on in the season, we spoke about McGregor taking a red card against Motherwell, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which, in terms of getting the 3 points, it done as much as the winning goal did at that moment of the game. And there's all these little moments that you don't really see the credit being dished out. But I'm in total agreement. I think Carter-Vickers, he's one of the 4 players that have come back from that World Cup. And he just clicked right back into the performances that he's had, that we're used to seeing him. The level of consistency is frightening. The partner that I think he's more suited to, even though it means playing him slightly out of position, is Starfelt. But the other players that he's played alongside have also played pretty well, in a partnership. Jens, who wasn't in the game today. I don't want to go OTT on any of the performances, because there are going to be days like today, Sean, and I think that we were nowhere near our best, but we're still 9 points clear. I don't think there's a momentum shift because Rangers have got a draw at home. So I really don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I do understand sometimes right after the game where the emotions are high, Autumn Glow comes in to talk about JJ's performance. He wasn't at his best, absolutely not. But I've got to maybe go back to him being introduced at that stage and getting played out of position. And maybe the decision being the wrong decision rather than putting all the focus on JJ. If I'm going to give Ange credit for his substitutions, in particular leaving Kyogo on the park, I've also maybe got to give him a wee bit of criticism for that. I still don't think that was the right decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was a bad decision. It should have been Bernabei. But you could maybe give him a little bit of credit for starting Juranovic on the bench and having Alistair Johnson in, who was one of the better players on the day as well. I don't think he let anyone down, and he certainly lived up to the occasion. Yeah. And I think you can't, as you said about Sevco getting kind of ahead of steam or confidence or anything like that. No, they played well for 10 minutes in the first half and they played well for 6 minutes in the second half. And I don't think we can, like when it comes back to Celtic Park in March or April, whenever the game is, I think we can be confident that we should be going for the 3 points in that game, if not taking them. I don't see us losing that game. I don't see how we can definitely still lose the league, but I don't expect Sevco to start pulling up trees. So I think if we just concentrate on being our best, which we weren't today, and I think there was some chat in the pre-match about a virus going through the squad, and it kind of looked like that at the start of the second half.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The point you're making there, you're looking at the bigger picture, as we call it, as cliched as it sounds. You come out of the January transfer window and already Celtic have obviously strengthened, and we've strengthened well, and we've strengthened in key areas. We don't know if the recruitment's finished quite yet. And you're hoping that any players that leave the club are mainly surplus to requirements, maybe other than Juranovic, because there's a lot of chat around Juranovic leaving. And I'm not going to say, listen, he was rotten today, I'll be happy to see the back of him. I think Juranovic has been a fantastic signing for the price that we paid for him. He's been very adaptable. Yes, today wasn't his best day, but under the circumstances, we're going to see, if indeed he stays at the club for any longer, we're going to see the real Juranovic. But the flip side of that, of course, is the fact that the player that, we've brought in to replace him, I thought was really assured. He looked as though he's just slotted in, again, very comfortably. It's not as though he's allowed the occasion to get to him or any of that kind of thing, Sean. And I thought over the piece he was one of our better players. I'd go with you in terms of Carter Vickers being the most important player in the park today. But in terms of a debut in that environment, I thought Johnson was outstanding. So credit to Ange for making sure he was prepared. I know he's been training with us for a few weeks and he's gone in, and I think he's going to be, again, another recruitment snip by Ange Postecoglou. But in terms of the momentum, we all know the situation with contracts at Ibrox. We also know the situation with regards to spending power or lack of. So I don't really have much concerns. I'm just concerning myself with the performance that we saw today. We got out of jail today, says Stephen Sloan. That was woeful. Ange got big decisions wrong. Should have started Forrest and Bernabei, should have come on instead of Juranovic. There's some of that I agree with. I think, and it's not with hindsight, it was a strange move to bring on Juranovic. But I also think Ange got some big decisions right. I think Johnson at right back was a big decision. I think keeping Kyogo on in the 75th minute proved to be a massive decision. Did we get out of jail today, Sean?
I mean, circumstantially, based on the situation, yeah, when you get a late equaliser, you can call that getting out of jail. But I don't think we were soundly beat. I don't think they were the better team. I don't think that was the case. I think we were poor. Don't think they were good, other than 15 minutes cumulative of the entire game. So, and whenever you go to Ibrox, it's difficult circumstance, no matter what. When you've got 700 away fans, you've not got anyone to kind of suck the ball into the net or give you a chee up. And I thought the players did well in that sense. Nobody had, but we were definitely not flowing today, and their game plan was designed to stop that, and it worked in that sense. And they got their penalty that they always get, and I'm still not sure how we didn't get one. I mean, I'm sure how we didn't get it, but I'm not sure how they can justify that retroactively as not being a penalty.
Well, there's quite a few comments coming in relation to some of the decisions that were made today. So let's have a look at that as well. And I said at half-time, I don't want to really focus on refereeing performances unless it costs us the game. There was a couple of wee moments in the first half I wasn't happy with. Morelos getting in about Greg Taylor, which was completely unnecessary, whilst Greg Taylor's on the ground injured. There was also one with Barisic getting in about Callum McGregor right up close to him and just getting away with that kind of stuff. And it's one of the things that you kind of cross the line there, and if you allow it to go, then, it could continue for the rest of the game. Haber, we can complain about the VAR, and rightfully so, but at the end of the day, Ange is at fault of this game with a horrible starting 11. Late subs and very slow pace. There was a very slow pace. Don't know how much that can be attributed to Ange Postecoglou. Horrible starting 11, but at half-time, Sean, we're 1 up. So it's working. At half-time, it's working. Even with that spanner getting thrown in the works with Taylor. But let's talk about the VAR. Let's talk about some of the decisions. Rangers get a penalty. You're of the view that it was a penalty. I think that the other two shouts at the other end are maybe what's really frustrating a lot of the commenters. So let's say there were 3. There was 2 handballs that we had shouts for, and there was a Starfelt penalty decision. So you're quite happy that that's a penalty for Rangers. Should Celtic have got a penalty? At least one penalty?
Well, the one that Goldson's hands are up, and it clearly comes off his hands, both of them, perhaps. I don't know how. I can't quite figure out how they've waved play on, and on that one, I don't know. I really don't understand how we've not got a penalty there. His hands are up. It's clearly hit his hands. I really don't know what Willie Collum has said to John Beaton. I don't know why he's not going to look at it. And then the second one, I've really no idea, to be honest with you, because I got literally one replay that was a bad angle, pixelated. I don't know. I couldn't even possibly guess. The way the ball deviated, it could have came off the guy's chest. It could have came off his hands. His hands could have been out. It could have been in. I have no idea from the one single replay that I was shown. Did you see more on Sky? I seen one full speed replay with a bad angle on Celtic TV.
Well, this is the problem that I had with that, was the very fact that there was no real investigation. There was no real argument to suggest that it was a penalty, which, again, I would like to look at that again. The one that I would focus on, like yourself, is Goldson's, because for me it's a stonewaller. We talk about arms that are in unnatural positions. There are certain occasions where, Bernabei Dundee United, for example, where I feel really sorry for the player, because in order to get any kind of height in a jump to try and win the ball, your arm's natural position isn't by your side. So the definition of natural position, your natural position when you're jumping has to be that your arms have to be in the air. You try and get any kind of height on a jump without moving your arms, it's almost impossible. However, that had nothing to do with Goldson's body movement. Goldson's body movement did not necessitate the movement of his hands right up in front and above his head, and both of them made contact with the ball. So for me, that was a stonewaller, and it's frustrating as hell when something like that happens. Jerry McCann, how was that a penalty? So Jerry thinks the Rangers penalty shouldn't have been given, but again, I must have watched it about 20 times. I mean, Starfelt, I don't want to criticise Starfelt. I don't think he was rash, Sean. But I think he was a wee bit unlucky. The way that his leg dragged and it made contact with the Rangers player, and there is an angle that it looks as though he's been landed on. Maybe that's where Jerry's coming from. But I think over the piece, if it's Celtic in a forward position, I'm shouting and screaming for a penalty there.
I think we did get one maybe about 10 years ago at Ibrox for something very, very similar. I think it was Anthony Stokes. Ago. It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a Tony Stokes one. I think we actually missed the penalty as well. But it was for the exact same thing. Stephen Whittaker did it. And look, that is a penalty. Even if you're not, you don't have to take somebody out at near shin height for it to be a penalty. Like if you're sliding in and you're nowhere near the ball and his foot, you take his footing away for that reason, that's a penalty. I don't have a problem with that one. I was just surprised it took him so long to point to the spot. I thought it was a stone wall at full pace, at full speed from the camera angle of the halfway line. So I don't have a complaint about that. My main complaint for both goals was Juranovic getting absolutely caught out. And I mean, Johnston might have closed down Kent a bit more, but I still don't think it makes much of a difference in that sense.
And the thing with Juranovic is in the game against Leipzig, where we lose two goals rather in the latter part of the game, Juranovic was to blame for poor positioning, very similarly to today. So I can't even put it down to being rusty and being unfit and all this kind of thing, Sean, because when he was at the absolute peak of his games and the peak of his powers this season, I do think sometimes his positional play lacks a bit and he switches off a wee bit. Whatever happens to Juranovic this month, I still believe that he's been a fantastic signing for us. I think that, we will be using the transfer market, to the advantage of Celtic, because we're going to make a really good profit on him. And I think that the fact that we've seen Johnson today in what is going to be his biggest domestic challenge, playing Rangers at Ibrox, and he's come through that with flying colours, it kind of softens the blow a wee bit. And we know that, Ralston will be coming back very, very soon as well. But yeah, Juranovic was not good today. But I'm trying my best not to single him out. We've also got Enru 91. How was that not a handball? I think you're probably talking about the same one as Sean and I with Goldson. Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that. And Lucy reminds us, -9. Yeah, it is, absolutely. And we've come out of that game. I think the momentum shift, had they won the game, would have been something that we would be discussing right now. But it's not happened. And Paul, plenty thought that was a poor starting 11, not after timing either. Well spotted, those people. Right, so let's not revise what we said at half-time. Was it a poor starting 11, Sean?
I don't think so, no. I agree with my position at the start of the game. We definitely looked sluggish at the start of the second half, but to be honest, we were comfortable in the first half. I don't think it was a poor starting 11. I think all the things we said at halftime about all the 5 players across the middle having a good game was valid for the whole first half. It was equally invalid for the start of the second half, where they were all poor. Everyone, the whole team started the second half poorly, and that really just killed a chance. With the 2 goals, just really killed the game for us. And that really played into their hands, where they had ball boys throwing the ball away and cameramen kicking it out of the way and all sorts of things. Like, I don't know if you noticed that, but there was one where Juranovic went to get the ball and the ball boy threw it away from him. So it was everything that they wanted and more once they got that lead. They obviously had that in mind before the game even started. If we get a lead, this is what we're doing. And that's a compliment to us, that they are scared, and they should be scared. And when we get them to Celtic Park, I hope we enact some retribution that day.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, it's already been spoken of that, some people in their own minds are saying it's okay, we just win the 3 derbies and we can pull this back. That was the chance. That was a chance for Rangers to go out there and claw back 3 points. We're still 9 ahead. Scott, we spoke about this at the beginning of the games, Sean and I, regarding Forrest. My take on it is that you've got a guy at right back who's making his debut. I think there needs to be a level of protection there. I don't think Abada gives him that. I just don't think Abada's got the defensive qualities. The other player that you could put there is Jota, who, as well as being kind of off form leading into this game, I also don't think defensively he's that sound. And I think that was what it came down to. Now, Forrest, I don't think he was that bad. I mean, I don't think anybody was that great. So, Forrest certainly wasn't in the Juranovic stakes, in terms of playing poorly, Sean. So, I think job done when it comes to Forrest starting the game.
What did Abada do in the half hour he was on?
I know.
He didn't do anything. There was one moment where he won a corner. He made a good run into the box, and there was a man free. 3 players closing down, which left, I can't remember who it was, Adam Moy, free at the edge of the box. The cutback was on, and instead he takes a shot on. So to me, you can criticise Forrest if you want, but what did Abada do? Was Abada some massive improvement when he came on? Don't think so.
No. And again, Jota was involved in the equaliser. So, I'm hoping... This is the thing as well. You've got Abada and Jota, who, when on top of their game, Sean, can win you a game. They're absolutely top class players, and they've kind of been off it. So we didn't come into this game without those 2 firing on all cylinders. Kyogo, he scores the equaliser, but Kyogo was very quiet today, and if he doesn't score that equaliser, I can see his name appearing time and time again in the comments, but he scores the goal, so it kind of washes that away a wee bit. The other player that I feel a wee bit, I think it's a wee bit hard done by with this from Pat O, but I appreciate you coming in. Starfelt a complete liability. I think
Second half, yeah.
I just think that Starfelt, in relation to his partnership with Carter Vickers, is the best we've got. But you do have a player there in Kobayashi on the bench who you ask yourself the question, Sean, is there going to be a Bernabe-like reaction? Because I think Taylor, before that, was already on good form, but then he's getting pushed for his jersey and he's just upped it again. Starfelt perhaps needs to up his game because he's got someone breathing down his neck at the moment, and it's not someone who's a stopgap lone player who we may or may not keep in Moritz Jens. It's somebody who, in Kobayashi, has come in with high pedigree and he's going to be pushing for a jersey. So do you think that's something we'll see a wee bit more of throughout the second half of the season? Kobayashi coming into the side, seeing if he can build a partnership with Carter Vickers?
I think so. Either that or Iwata. I agree with Pat with regards to the second half. Starfelt was a liability in many ways. There was just simple fouls. He was giving away simple possession. He was conceding, obviously, the penalty. But then I also agree with yourself, Paul, that he is probably our second best centre-back at the moment. And hopefully Kobayashi does get a chance to stake a claim for that position. It'd be great to have the balance of a left-footed player there. And it would be great if there was another player with the potential to come in and be a Jason Denier. I'm not going to say another Van Dijk. That's pie in the sky, but someone who could really be a solid player on the left there would really raise their game a level, I think. And Starfelt was exposed without Greg Taylor helping him in particular.
You've got to take that into account as well. Absolutely. If you're talking about Forest starting the game to aid Johnson, I think when Taylor leaves that area of the park, it's a lot weaker. Even though Maeda, for me, defensively is very, very good. So yes, Maeda gets on the score sheet. Kyogo scores during a game in which I think he could have been hooked in the second half, Sean, and we're still 9 points ahead. So let's take the positives from it. Not the best performance, but I think that's all that Rangers could possibly take from the game as a point. Celtic will be a wee bit more disappointed, but we move on to the weekend in Kilmarnock, where we'll be covering the game again on A Celtic State of Mind. If you haven't done so already, why not subscribe to the channel? It's free of charge, and during this year you will be given free content every single day, and it'll be exclusively Celtic related content. Loads of big plans for 2023. If you haven't already done so, join our collaborators Celtic Down Under on YouTube and also on their socials. And what I'll do is I'll show you where all the socials are. There they are down the bottom of the screen. We are raising cash for St Mary's, the birthplace of Celtic. The fundraising link is underneath this video, as is the download link for The Glory and the Dream, which is a single that we collaborated on with The Wakes, JJ Gilmore, Gary John Kane and Carly Connor. I hope you enjoy that. All that's left for me to say, thanks everybody for getting involved. I love a wee bit of the to and fro, disagreements, all that kind of stuff in the comments. That's what it's all about. Have a fantastic 2023. Keep celebrating if you're still off your work. And all that's left for me to say, Sean Connolly, thank you again for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks, Bob.